Hello, it's second line day. We're in gate 12 and it's line 2, which is called Purification. It's one of the paradoxes in design that this is a social channel. It's the only individual social channel, and yet it started off in the first line with the monk sitting on his pillar all alone, and now the purification of the social hermits, if that's not something that's a complete tautology. Tautology, is that the right word? Anyway, it doesn't fit, does it? Social hermits. The lower trigram is not terribly social at the best of times, really. They're not even when it's in a social channel. They're involved in their own process. And they will look at social contact as something to be very wary of. Because a risky business getting involved with other people because they may be threatened by that social contact. This is where celibacy comes from, Ra tells us. Celibacy is in the 12th gate. We find all kinds of abstinence here, because what this 12th gate in the second line is saying is, I would rather just be pure. Leave me alone with all this other stuff. I don't want to be contaminated by it. The lifetime learning says rigorous withdrawal from negative influences. Well, what's a negative influence, do you suppose? What is meant here is the emotions of the solar plexus at the other end of the channel. There are those who are comfortable with the solar plexus high in its wave, and there are those who are uncomfortable with the solar plexus when it's high in its wave, and the same with the low side. Some are comfortable with that low melancholy, and some are deeply uncomfortable with that. And then there are also some who aren't bothered by the wave, and I imagine there are some that don't like either end of the wave. It's all here. But this is this negative influence that is felt in gate 12, line 2. In the exaltation, we have the discipline to maintain a pure state, the expression of disciplined social caution. These are people who can abstain and be pure in many different spheres in life. They may totally give up coffee or meat or alcohol or sex or whatever it is they perceive takes them away from purity. It can be quite an isolated line in some ways. They are projecting out that they're not interested. They don't want to have contact with the social aspect at the other end of the channel. Of course, they don't know they're doing that. The line 2 is unaware in this sense. Now, this is about social mutation. The second line doesn't understand what is underneath and how much they may get out of that social contact. And so they withdraw. In the detriment, we find the boredom that arises out of a lack of stimulation, caution that manifests boredom and the expressed desire for stimulus. So then someone comes along and they knock at their window, and the 12-2 doesn't actually know that they're in a pure state. They don't know what they're doing in there. It's only when the call comes and they can see themselves in relation to others and they start making comparisons that there then is the possibility for them to see the state of purity that they're in. If they don't have contact with others, they will never make that comparison, and they will live in their state of purification in blissful, untroubled ignorance. But the call, of course, does usually come for a second line eventually. The boredom that arises, Ra says this is down to them not having the ability to be able to share the mutation. And without the discipline, these people can get called out, and then they can go through all kinds of emotional difficulty. They might get called out, but they're not really in the mood. Maybe they don't know why they're not in the mood, and that can be confusing. And of course, there isn't a why. That's just the mind getting involved and starting to tell a story. It is what it is. I'm not in the mood. The end. All of this material that I share with you through these transit reports, and I take it from the Ravi Ching and from the Line Companion and from some of Ra's talks. And it's important to remember that it's the expression of the not self. The Ravi Ching is not a guidebook. It's not a manual. It's a way to look at how we behave when our minds are trying to run the show, when we give our authority away. And the longer we're in human design and the longer we experiment with our strategy and authority and go through our 7-year deconditioning cycles, the closer we get to being able to look at these lines and see, wow, I don't behave like that anymore. We don't have to be ruled by the mind. We can let it get on with its proper role and let the vehicle do what it needs to do and take us where we need to go. The grounding comes from gate 11, line 2. This is called rigor. Purification can be a rigorous process. Maintaining purity can be a rigorous process too. And this line brings a consistency that the 12-2 can tap into to help with its discipline. Boredom is an aspect of the second line that isn't often mentioned, but it's there in the detriment of the 12-2, and here it is in the grounding influence of the 11-2, and through genetic continuity, it's in all second lines. Possibly more in the collective, in the tribal, but also individuality, of course. But imagine that you're a second line and nobody is calling you out, and you're collective, or you're tribal, and you want to be part of what's going on. You're just hanging out in your room and you're waiting for somebody to call you out. And if nobody calls you out, then boredom makes an appearance. Boredom and a lack of motivation, two things which often go hand in hand. Mercury is moving into gate 12, so joining the sun. So maybe there'll be some communication and chatter around caution, people urging you to wait, not to be hasty, or maybe people starting to talk about change or expressing some kind of mutation that they're experiencing, or just generally having an impact of some sort. The moon, still in gate 6, gate of friction and conflict. And moving into gate 46 at 1538. This is the temple of the love of the body, or not. This is a G-center gate, and it's the gate of the determination of the self. This is the experiencing of life through the physical body and the physical quality of life itself, including love of the body. We've talked about this before, doing something really yummy for yourself on days when the 46 is activated to show your temple respect. It's a gate that appreciates the sensual nature of experience and life. It's a gate of synchronicity, of being in the right place at the right time. And it's the determination to let go of expectation and surrender to experience. The moon then begins its monthly journey through the splenic gates. At 3:04, it begins with gate 18. This is the gate of correction, and it's working on what has been spoiled. This is a gate that can easily feel dissatisfied with imperfection. It has a keen ability to spot flaws and weaknesses and to correct them. There can be a fear of authority here and a strong drive to challenge anywhere it is perceived to be out of order or undermining personal or collective well-being. So this is our gate situation today. This is our transit report. Thank you for watching or listening. I appreciate your traveling with me on this journey around the wheel. If you have any comments, then please, as always, leave them in the comments section. If you've got comments, leave them in. Where else would you leave a comment? I'm going. Go gently. I'll see you tomorrow.